Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later today at the White House, where they are expected to discuss a proposed ceasefire deal for the war in Gaza. This as Israeli officials hold indirect talks with Hamas aimed at a U.S.-brokered Gaza hostage release and ceasefire deal. Trump said there was a good chance such a deal could be reached by the end of this week. A Palestinian independent politician, Mustafa Barghouti, says the White House plays a crucial role in reaching the deal.
I think if there is sufficient pressure from the side of President Trump on Netanyahu, who faces very strong opposition inside his government to a ceasefire, and if Netanyahu listens even to internal pressure from Israel, including families of the Israeli captives, then we will see a ceasefire.
Recapping on your top stories, the South African chairperson of Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee, Ian Cameron, says President Cyril Ramaphosa should urgently act to protect the credibility of the police service. This follows allegations of corruption involving high-ranking police officers. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, so the total prize money for the 2024 WAFCON tournament has been set at $3.475 million, an overall increase of about 45%. We'll speak to a football journalist, Ashley Nagazwe, to break the numbers down for us. And as players continue to ask for the Grand Slam for more money, the chair of the All England Club has suggested those questions should be posed directly to the regular events managers. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Kenya. Good afternoon, Ghana, Senegal, Eritrea. Good afternoon to you, Somalia, Ethiopia, Eswatini, Lesotho. Good afternoon to you, Côte d'Ivoire. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. We are coming to you live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. A lot in store for you this afternoon as we look into the C20, which falls under the G20. The latest regarding Donald Trump, his 10% tariff hikes, and relations with the BRICS countries. Also, an ongoing conference over the next 4 days on the transport sector in South Africa. And a look at President John Mahama's efforts to revitalize and revive the economy of Ghana. That and a whole lot more coming up in store for you this afternoon. Welcome to Africa in Business. It's gone 8 minutes after 4 p.m.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
We begin here this afternoon. The chairperson of the C20, which falls under the G20, Thulani Chefuta, says that in the midst of a challenging geopolitical climate and increasing trade uncertainty, the C20 is pushing for a people-centered development agenda that prioritizes inclusive economic transformation over economic dominance. Chefuta was speaking at a C20 media briefing held earlier on today in Pretoria. The meeting took place under the theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability. Channel Africa's business reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
As South Africa gears up to host the G20 Leaders Summit later this year, the C20, one of the official G20 engagement groups representing civil society across various sectors, briefed the media on the country's preparations and priorities on the road to the summit. The chairperson of the C20, Thulani Chefuta, led the briefing.
We take pride in the fact that from the beginning of our work in December 2024, to date we have been able to register more than 1,900 civil society organizations that have declared interest in participating in the C20 structures and processes. These organizations are drawn from South African civil society, from the African continent, and the rest of the world, as in the countries that are member countries of G20. We have taken a conscious decision of making this as the first South African G20 to be less about South Africa, but more about Africa as a whole.
Chifuta says the C20 advocates for a people-centered development agenda that prioritizes inclusive economic transformation.
At the very least, the volatile geopolitical developments reflect the vulnerabilities of our economies to external shocks, almost instantly finding expression on the daily lives and experiences of the people. And the point we're driving here is that on the slightest provocation of a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and we cannot get fertilizer, our agricultural sector is affected, and you know the knock-on effect on the food prices.
And this is a call for the C20 regarding issues of just energy and climate change.
And the call we are making as civil society is that we tend to make a one-sided call for a just transition focused on energy. Yes, the energy transition must be just, the same way as the demographic transition must be just, the same way as the technological transition must be just, and climate change. The G20 Presidency of the Republic of South Africa is committed to promote a people-centered, development-oriented G20 that fosters inclusive economic transformation rather than economic dominance by the few over the majority.
As the countdown to the G20 summit continues, the C20 is making it clear that civil society voices must be central in shaping policies that drive inclusive growth and climate justice. For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Samosa.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 12 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. President Donald Trump says the United States will impose an additional 10% tariff on any country aligning themselves with the what he calls anti-American policies of the BRICS group of developing nations. He made those comments following a joint statement from the opening of the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, in which the group warned that the rise in tariffs threatened global trade. In a post on Truth Social, Trump posted, I quote, "Any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. There will be no exceptions to this policy," end quote. To discuss this, we joined this afternoon on the line by Dr. Sizongala, a research fellow at the Center for China-Africa Studies, or Africa-China Studies, with the University of Johannesburg. A very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us today. So perhaps let's start first with some definitions here. What can one define as quote-unquote anti-American policies of BRICS? And why does Trump see BRICS as a threat? Welcome.
Well, good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you very much for having me. So as we have become accustomed, the thing with Donald Trump is that the things that he talks about or the things he pronounces on the media are content-free and devoid of any substance. I mean, he just said anti-American policies, but he did not expand on that, just like how he was peddling the South African genocide narrative, but without any details. So we are left to speculate. So if we are to assume what constitutes an anti-American policy, according to Donald Trump, it would be maybe the BRICS countries moving towards de-dollarization, either by creating a new BRICS currency, which the countries have denied. They've said they're not creating a new BRICS currency, or by promoting local currency, trade in local currencies amongst themselves, which is another way of de-dollarizing. And then they seem to be pressing on with this particular policy of trading, deliberately trading in local currencies amongst themselves. And also, I think that they are creating new financial infrastructure. Because if you follow BRICS, when it started in 2009, their orientation was towards the reform of existing institutions, like the IMF or the World Trade Organization. But now I think they are shifting their strategy towards creating new institutions that would rival American-dominated global financial institutions. So that they're talking about the BRICS cross-border payments initiative, which would be an alternative to the SWIFT mechanism that is controlled by America. So I think that's what Donald Trump is uncomfortable about, that these countries, which are major economies in the world, are moving away from an American-dominated system to a new one where they will be shielded and protected from, I think, American dominance and American weaponization of the dollar and other aspects of the international financial system.
Yeah, and what would be the economic impact of this extra 10% tariff on those quote-unquote BRICS-aligned countries and the BRICS bloc themselves? I mean, if you look at the market reaction already, the Indian rupees fell about 0.5 percent after that particular announcement was made. But what type of long-term economic impact can one expect from this?
Well, I think the long-term impact is negative because if Trump imposes these the 10% tariffs as he has promised or threatened to do, I think we'll see some retaliation, especially by China. I don't know about other countries in the group, but China will certainly retaliate. So what this does, I think, is it brings an atmosphere of uncertainty. Already Trump's trade policy has created uncertainty in the global economy. It has disrupted supply chains. The investment flows are not happening the way they should be happening because businesses do not know what Donald Trump will decide tomorrow morning. So no one is certain, and investing in such a climate becomes a challenge. So I think we will see a further fragmentation or the deglobalization of the global economy because of these unilateral and protectionist measures that Donald Trump is imposing.
Doctor, you mentioned the reaction of some of the BRICS countries, Russia, China, South Africa. All of them came out saying that they're not anti-American and that they don't actually pose a threat to the United States and that they're not consciously targeting them. But do you believe that these Trump assertions will help deter other countries from perhaps aligning with the BRICS blocs?
Well, I think when it comes to the degree of anti-Americanism within the BRICS, I think it varies according to the member countries. For countries like Russia and Iran, I think they are more anti-American because they are suffering under the sanctions imposed by America on their economies. So I think they are more anti-American in their stance than other members like South Africa, India, and Brazil, for instance, even the UAE and Egypt. So I think the BRICS countries themselves have to close ranks on their position towards America. I don't think there's a uniform position towards America. If you look at the way they reacted to Trump tariffs in April, it was different. While some countries were chasing a deal, I mean, Indian leader went to Washington to try and hammer out a deal with the Trump administration. South Africa's President Ramaphosa also went to Washington to try and hammer out a deal with Washington, but the reaction we saw from China was different. I don't think these countries are talking to each other on their position towards Trump. But if we read the statements released by the BRICS leaders, I think they published a declaration yesterday. It's really not anti-American. I think they are pursuing their own interests, economic interests and geopolitical interests. Although in that statement, I think they are critical of, they don't even name America in that statement. I think they've been critical of American actions in Iran. They are critical of Israel in Gaza. They're critical of Trump's unilateral tariff measures. So I think they have been critical, but we cannot take such critiques to be anti-American. I think they're just protecting and advancing their interests.
Dr. Sizongala, we thank you very much for putting all this into perspective for us. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. It is also worth noting that the tariff pause is actually due to expire on the 9th of July, which is Wednesday. So between the 1st of August, when these new tariffs will come in, and now the 9th of July, it basically means that all those quote-unquote anti-American countries that are pro-BRICS and pro-BRICS policies have to meet with the United States and negotiate some sort of a deal in order to stay in Donald Trump's good books and enjoy an easing down of that 10% tariff. It's gone exactly 22 minutes after 4 p.m. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
We turn our focus now to the Transport Conference that's currently taking place in Pretoria, which is South Africa's capital. It is the 43rd annual Southern African Transport Conference, where experts from across the transport sector are gathered. It is a 4-day event looking at economic and developmental cost of poor transport infrastructure, also looking at bold and practical mobility innovations to future-proof the country's cities and the transport networks. It will further engage in the next 4 days on the role of the public-private partnerships in transport funding and implementation. But to hear more about the conference, we joined this afternoon by the chairperson of the Southern African Transport Conference, Dr. Mateta Mokonyama. A very good afternoon to you, Doctor. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, Thami, and thank you.
So tell us more about some of the discussions that you've partaken in or that you've heard throughout the conference that you have found quite interesting. Any interesting angles, propositions, policies being put on the table, solutions?
An example would be members of the Namibia, Parliament who are here. It's the first time that they came to the Southern African Transport Conference. And they are saying we now can see how broad this portfolio is, and they have material. They can see that they have material that they can use to hold some of the executives, accountable. We've got individuals from West Africa who have come here to share their experiences with regard to maritime innovations. ECOWAS So they'll be sharing with the broader community, transport sector, on what they are doing, what we can learn, from say South Africa and some of the neighboring countries, given that maritime is a big part of their transport system. We have the International Association of Public Transport that is running a master class, has collaborated with us to run a master class on electric vehicles. And it's a packed class. It was a surprise because we were expecting, about 15, 20 people, but it's 3 times that number. So how to, incorporate electric mobility into your public transport system. Yeah.
And I wonder, what are the tangible things that you hope to achieve at the end of this conference, especially as you've highlighted that the different countries are at different developmental stages as far as their transportation infrastructure is concerned. And what do you hope will be a positive, tangible, actionable takeout for you?
We've got case studies that show that things can be done. So there are towns, cities, some rural areas where lessons have been learned about how to deploy technology. So once you can show that something can be done, then then going forward is about how you can scale, those solutions. We've got a lot of small businesses around who are exhibiting, at the conference, showcasing some of their innovations. And that they are in touch with some of the industry players across the continent means that some of their solutions can be readily deployed. So our interest is to make sure that we connect all these role players. We've got a repository of information from way back for over the past 43 years. We've got papers, peer-reviewed scientific papers that document studies, new knowledge that can be readily used to inform policies, plans, designs. Some of them are being used already, to set targets, policy targets, and they are freely available, on our website. You go to our website, you're able to access electronic, papers from 2000. And we are, continuously, adding to that repository.
And what is your website? Do you have it at hand? Do you have it ready?
Yes, www.SAS for sugar, A apple, T for Trevor, C for champion.org.za.
All right, that's www.satc.org.za. If you're listening anywhere around the world or on the continent and you want to make use of those peer-reviewed documents, you certainly can do so, and those case studies. So, Doctor, what are the areas of improvement that are required, do you believe, to improve the transport system in South Africa, or not in South Africa, but in Southern Africa? And the big question of the cost of this and how financeable are they?
Yeah, there are solutions that are a lot more cost effective than previous historical solutions. We've got technologies that, for example, show that you can have lightweight structures doing the same thing as heavy structural elements. And that has been tested. So instead of investing in very expensive, heavy infrastructure elements, you can use lightweight material. Data. Instead of doing data collection manually, monitoring of your infrastructure, you can deploy sensors, satellite technology, to help you cost effectively monitor the condition of your infrastructure and be able to improve your turnaround times. So there's a whole range of solutions that could reduce the generalized cost of managing infrastructure systems and operations.
Dr. Mateta Mokanyama, thank you so much for your insight this afternoon. It certainly sounds like technology is at the forefront of this innovation, also reducing the prices and the barriers to entry as well for those in the industry. We thank you, Doctor, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. He takes us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Let's head over now to the markets desk where Chanduko Legege is standing by with the latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. These are your financial indicators from the African continent. $1 is trading at 17 Rand 56 in South Africa. In Botswana, 13 Pula 10. Namibia, 17 Namibian dollars 56. Zambia, 24 Kwacha 18. In Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 545. Ethiopia, 136 big 955. Uganda, 3,564 shilling. Tanzania, 2,000 shilling 645. $1 in Nigeria is 1,527 naira. In Egypt, the dollar is 49 Egyptian pound 31. Tunisia, 2 dinar 88. Algeria, 129 dinar 52. Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 83. Angola, the dollar is at 912 kwanza. The Congolese franc is 2,865. Looking at commodities, gold is at $3,310. Platinum at $1,349 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $68.96 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And for the latest in the business of sport, a very good afternoon to you, Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Thami. We'll start here. So the 2024 edition of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament is well underway. It's day 3 of the competition, and we've seen some interesting results coming through in this year's competition. But a lot of people have been talking about the prize money at this year's competition. So in a move, both symbolic as well as strategic, CAF has now doubled the prize money for the tournament's eventual winner from $500,000 to a landmark $1 million, and also increased the overall prize pot by 45%. So the total prize money now for the 2024 edition of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament has now been set at $3.475 million. Let's speak now to African football women's journalist, that is Ashley Nagazwe, on the line to help us dissect this increase and what essentially it means for women's football on the African continent. Ashley, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. It's a big prize money increase, showing CAF's ongoing commitment to developing the women's game on the African continent and also making it globally competitive. What does this increase essentially mean for the women's game on the continent, Ashley?
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon. Okay, so, this prize money has come at the time when it's much needed and very, very, very welcomed. You know how most of these clubs, team players struggle. So that money coming from CAF and then going to the national team is a very, very good initiative, which definitely shows the commitment that CAF is doing with regards to women's football and contributing to the development of women's football. And it being competitive, this is really good because it's now in comparison to the Asian Cup where it's worth $1 million US. Yeah. So which is very, very good because now you can see that this African women's football is now competitive even on the financial side.
Yeah, and you speak about that Asian Cup competition. You speak about how the women's game is now competitive when you compare it to what's happening globally. There's a Euro women's competition underway at the moment in Switzerland. How do those prize monies compare? How does the AFCON women's competition compare to what we're seeing with the Euros women's competition at the moment in Switzerland?
Well, obviously the Euros has been ongoing longer and also obviously has more stakeholders and more money there. So them having a $1 million difference isn't so bad for us because, they took a long time for them to also get there. And we will also get there as well. So it's a good thing that CAF is trying to compete as well for women. And we know that maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, it will be just as much.
Yeah, let's just break it down for us. So the winners of this year's competition walks away with $1 million. That's an increase from a $500,000 won by Banyana back in 2022. The runner-ups walking away with $500,000. The third place finishers, the bronze medal, will then walk away with about $350,000. The fourth place winners, $300,000. The quarterfinalists, about $200,000 each. In the group stages, the team that finishes in third position, $150,000, while the teams that finish in fourth position in the group stages will walk away with $125,000. So how does it work, Ashley? CAF pays the money to the football associations, and then it's up to the FAs to distribute the money equally to the players, the coaching staff. How does it work?
I think, you know what, this is where now the FAs have to be very honest in distribution. Because for me, I always feel like sometimes the FAs are not genuine, because some of the money that is meant for women's football goes to other things around the FA. Maybe sometimes goes to the men's football or development around the FA itself, which is supposed to be for the women. So it's about the FAs being very genuine, because this money, I think the president did confirm in the last press conference where he said, just by virtue of participating, that $125,000 goes to every team that is joining. And then every team that is participating in CAF tournaments, like the CAF Women's Champions League, still gets $1 million also. So it's about the FAs and the club being genuine in distributing this money, which is meant for the women and not for other departments within the FA.
Yeah.
That means we have less problems and sightings and complaints of players not getting their money. I mean, we did see what happened to the Congo DR just before their game. The previous day, they could not even train because they demanded their money. Why was their money coming just before them playing a game? And we saw how poor their performance was. That is what this players' performance is.
Yeah, it's crazy that you say that the DR Congo, the players struggling with their monies. We also saw the same thing with Banyana players complaining about the salaries that were not paid. And we do understand that SAFA has reached an agreement with the players. How is it that we are in 2025, Ashley, and this still persists, this issue of federations not paying players and players having to stage stay-ins in hotel rooms to get the hearing of the federations to pay them their money? How is it that in 2025 this is still happening to the women's game on the African continent?
Well, it just shows how lack of integrity there is around the FAs, how much of how less of these women are taken, how they're not taken seriously. You know, how is it that the people who are raising the flag for your national team are not being treated well? I mean, look at Banyana. They've taken every accolade from Aisha Buhari, Women's Africa Cup of Nations. They've gone to the quarterfinals in the World Cup. What else do they want?
Yeah.
How else should they prove themselves to be taken seriously? Why should the Banyana player be going to work while also trying to play for the national team when that salary should be enough for them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it just speaks of the integrity, mismanagement around the football associations, mismanagement around people who handle finances, because every federation has AGMs, right? When these audits are done, who's holding them accountable for all of these things? Because when the AGM is done and we need to see where the money went to, it's not accounted for.
Actually, I
and that's embarrassing.
Absolutely, it's embarrassing for the football associations that should do better by the women players, like you said, who represent the country on the African continent and continue to impress. Ashley, thank you so much for your time this afternoon on Channel Africa. That is Ashley Nakazwe, an African football women's journalist, speaking to us, of course, about the prize money and, of course, the issues facing women's football on the African continent when it comes to the financial instability of that. It's a wrap from the sports desk at the SAWA. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is now 20 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. A very good afternoon to you. This is Africa in Business. We turn our focus now to Ghana and its economy. In a move aimed at breathing new life into Ghana's industrial ambitions, President John Mahama has unveiled a bold commitment to revive the legacy of Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Through his 24-hour economy policy, Mahama says his government will rejuvenate the country's manufacturing sector and also unlock the vast economic potential of inland Ghana. The newly launched policy is part of a broader strategic effort to drive industrialization, to create jobs and accelerate economic transformation. Joining us this afternoon to dissect this further is George Antwi Bwasiako, Director of Finance at Hubs Network, CEO, Startups Cooperative Credit Union in Ghana. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good to have you too. Thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Oh, well, look, with the different time zones, I think anything goes at this point because we are broadcasting all over. So anyone goes. But perhaps let's start with an understanding, George, of what a 24-hour economy policy looks like. In practice, how does it work? How would it work?
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you to your listeners across Africa. I think it's a vision by our current president to, let me say, revive the spirit of our first president.
My sincerest apologies, Mr. George. Can I ask if you could hold on for us just for a moment? We've got a live crossing that we'd like to do with President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is at the BRICS Summit. He is addressing everybody live. So if you could please bear with us as we cross over to Rio de Janeiro at the BRICS Summit, where President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, is on the podium.
We are all equal, and that is an important consideration because that leads to us cooperating on a number of areas. And indeed, through the declaration that was adopted, we covered a number of areas ranging from the governance of the world right through to issues like technical education. And on global governance, we continued to respect the existence and the standing of the United Nations, as well as to call for the reform of the United Nations structures, especially the Security Council, by ensuring that it becomes more representative. We observe that it is not acceptable that huge countries such as India, such as Brazil, are excluded from participating meaningfully. But more importantly for us, that the African continent, which has 1.3 billion people, is not represented in the United Nations Security Council. And we said that we should continue insisting, and we were rather pleased that there is agreement on the reform of the UN Security Council, even amongst those members of BRICS who are members of the Security Council. And we looked at a number of other important issues, such as climate change, that we need to ensure that the commitments that have been made with regard to climate change, particularly assisting and supporting countries that are most affected by climate change, which happen to be countries in the global south, countries that had very little responsibility for the climate damage that the world is going through now, should be assisted and supported through their transition to renewable energies. And that the countries that have made commitments, particularly in the global north, should live up to their commitments with regard to ensuring that we address the climate challenges that we are facing in the world. And so BRICS also dealt with a variety of issues, security matters, and on security matters, we collectively condemned the attack on countries such as Iran, which was done unilaterally, and continued to call for a ceasefire in Gaza so that the slaughter and the genocide of the Palestinians should be stopped. We also took time to look at what is happening in Sudan, the catastrophe that is unfolding there with people becoming displaced and many people dying. So that too was dealt with, and BRICS insisted that when it comes to our continent, African conflicts must be resolved through African solutions. And we were rather pleased that we also dealt with key issues such as how our critical minerals that come from largely African countries should be treated, that there should be beneficiation and there should be value addition. And this we as South Africa and Brazil articulated very strongly during the summit. So the summit in large measure was a successful one, and to have a summit of this size adopting a declaration just goes to prove the success thereof. And there were no dissensions, and we are particularly pleased with that. So it's a community of countries that want to see progress in the world, that want to see a fair and equitable world where people of the world are treated fairly and equitably. And we also dealt with the issue of people-to-people contact, that the people in BRICS countries should be given the opportunity to be in contact with each other. So on that score and many other issues that were covered, BRICS, Rio de Janeiro was very successful. So we leave with very fulfilled hearts, because it has added to many issues that will lead to the development of our world. There was also great appreciation and support for South Africa's coming G20, and in recognizing the importance of G20, that it encompasses so many countries in the world. We were wished great success, and we were greatly supported. And so as we depart, many countries said, bon voyage, we will see you in November in Johannesburg. Thank you. Thank you. Can I go home now?
No, Mr. President. There's the President Cyril Ramaphosa saying, thank you, can I go, as he concludes his closing remarks there at the BRICS summit currently taking place in Rio de Janeiro, touching on a number of pertinent issues regarding the representation at the UN Security Council of African countries, stating there that some headway has been made regarding that issues of climate change, renewable energy, as well as commitments that have been made actually being met. That's President Cyril Ramaphosa. You'll remember earlier on we brought you the story of President Donald Trump of the United States saying any country that aligns itself to the quote-unquote anti-American policies of the BRICS blocs will have a 10% tariff meted out on them. So we'll leave them for a while as we make our way back to Ghana. Thank you so much, George Antwi Bosiako, for your patience and holding for us as we took President Cyril Ramaphosa at the closing of the BRICS summit. We thank you very much for your time, sir. So shall we perhaps begin again right at the top, where I was asking you for what a 24-hour economic policy actually looks like, and in practice, what does it mean?
So Ghana, now we seek to transform our economy from import dependency to export-driven economy. Currently, the picture doesn't look too good when it comes to import. So when it comes to export of our products, about just 25% of goods that we manufacture are exported, which is not too good, and because we are not intentional about our manufacturing. So with a 24-hour economy, government is looking at Ghana growing 24, making 24, funding our businesses 24, and then also exporting 24, building 24. So it's a policy initiative that our government seeks to actually enhance production and export in Ghana. We know in Africa, everybody talks about the fact that we have a lot of raw materials, but we need to add value. So it's value addition, it's exports, it's expansion in our economy, utilizing our youth so that we get more youth to work. So it's a very targeted initiative, and we are very much hopeful from here in Ghana.
And what would be the economic benefits that Ghana could realistically expect from the implementation of this policy?
Yeah, so if you look at the program and how government want to initiate, first of all, government want to go strong in terms of expanding our agric productivity. Currently, our food security situation is not too good. We are doing about 30%. Government want to increase that to about 75%. And then also, when it comes to agricultural productivity, Ghana, we are importing almost close to about $2 billion worth of food alone. And this is something that we can do to alleviate that, because we have arable lands and we can do that. So the economic benefit is, like I said, going to increase manufacturing. And then we are looking at creating opportunity for our youth to get involved in agriculture, in manufacturing. And these are the key anchors of Ghanaian economy. We are noted for agric, and then we are also noted for industrialization in terms of manufacturing. So mainly, these are the key benefits. It's going to actually help us to actually increase even the size of our economy. Now, our GDP is projected at 4.2% this year, but we are hoping to even do beyond that, way beyond that. Agric contribution to our GDP is around 15%. Government seeks to increase it to about 30%, and it's through this 24-hour economy. If we are able to actually implement it so well, now it looks very good on paper. And it's very promising that it's actually going to increase employment, expand our economy, and also draw in more investment coming into Ghana. And I think this is something that is going to affect even the entire African continent.
You mentioned something that I want to pick up on there, George. You said this looks very good on paper. I'd like you to break down for us, how implementable is this? Is the success of this 24-hour economy, is the success of this economic turnaround dependent on energy and infrastructure stability in the country?
Yeah, first of all, if you look at the initiative, government is trying to develop what we call industrial parks along our Volta Basin. This is a long stretch of river and streams along the Ghana, entire Ghana. And then what government seeks to do is to establish these industrial parks where it will have its own transport system using the various river basin, that's the water basin, and also trying to establish alternative power, like using solar and other energy solution to actually power industry that comes along that industrial park, like I said. And for now, government has made some significant investment in electricity and energy in Ghana. So I believe these are things that if we are able to sustain them, then the gains that we are looking for from the 24-hour economy will actually be sustained. But like I said, when it comes to policies and programs like this, is not the first time. I think our previous government had what we call agenda, what we call it, one district, one factory, where they seek to expand factories across the various districts. But some works were done, but we were not able to actually achieve the real objective that we were looking for. So I believe that with lessons from those policy failures, this government has every chance to be able to learn from those lessons. But like I said, energy is a big thing when it comes to industrialization. So government is looking at other alternatives like solar, also how we can actually enhance energy that we are getting from hydro and other energy sources in Ghana. And for now, energy stability is quite reliable, dependable for in Ghana at the moment. And we are hoping that we are able to sustain it, especially the fact that we want to expand our manufacturing sector.
George Antwi Boasiako, thank you so much for your insight and your time, as Ghana is on the precipice of what could be a game changer, but we will wait to see. It all is in the implementation, isn't it? We thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Awesome. We look forward.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. That's George Antwi Boasiako, is the Director of Finance Hubs Network CEO, Startups Cooperative Credit Union in Ghana. That takes us to exactly 4:54 Central African time as we head over now to Malawi and Botswana. They've signed agreements in trade, mining, agriculture, as well as youth empowerment, aligned with Malawi's agriculture, tourism and mining strategy. This is all to revive its struggling economy. Now, the two nations also agreed to open embassies. This follows talks between their foreign affairs ministers at Malawi's 61st independence anniversary celebrations on Sunday. President Lazarus Chakwera said the presence of Botswana's President Duma Boko as a guest of honor reflected a shared commitment to democracy and development. George Mhango has more in Blantyre.
I wish every one of you a happy Independence Day. As for you, my brother, Advocate Duma Gideon Boko, President of the Republic of Botswana, I thank you for accepting my invitation to come and celebrate this special day with us.
Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera and his Botswana counterpart Duma Gideon Boko signed the trade agreements as Malawi celebrated 61st independence anniversary celebrations on Sunday in the administrative capital Lilongwe. Chakwera described President Boko, who served as the guest of honor at the event, as a visionary, democrat and pan-Africanist leader who aligns with Malawi's values of democracy, good governance and development. He lauded Botswana's progress under Boko's leadership, especially the launch of the country's first satellite into space within 6 months of his presidency. Chakwera then asked Boko to collaborate on Malawi's strategy of boosting productivity in agriculture, tourism and mining while advancing manufacturing and value addition.
My desire is to see growth in the trade between our countries. My desire is to see Malawi learn from Botswana's experience in diamond governance, to structure our own mineral sector and sovereign wealth fund through the mining company and mining authority we have already set up. My desire is to explore how we can work together on Malawi's what we call ATM strategy.
In his address at a banquet organized for him, President Boko reminded Africans on challenges of democracy, citing Malawi as an example of resilience and justice. He praised Malawi's military and judiciary for upholding the people's will during the court-sanctioned 2020 fresh presidential poll, citing such actions a testament to the democratic spirit that must be protected. Boko stressed the need for leaders to take good care of their citizens.
That's George Mhango coming to us from Blantyre. Increasing relations both in trade as well as diplomacy between Malawi and Botswana. That's how we wrap up today's edition of Africa in Business on Channel Africa. It is exactly 4:57 as we make way for Vue d'Afrique and the French desk. Bonjour, jolie Joëlle.
Bonjour Thami, merci. Bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa sur Vue d'Afrique. Tout à l'heure, il sera question de la Chine qui a vivement réagi aux menaces américaines d'imposer des nouveaux tarifs douaniers aux pays alignés au BRIC. Nous parlerons également du Gabon. Le président Nguema lance l'Union démocratique des bâtisseurs. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci de rester connecté. Merci Thami.
Merci beaucoup. And that's how we come to the end of it for today. Thank you to our entire team on Africa in Business. Our producer Mabo Buloka, also on the economic desk, Chanduko Lekege, on news, on Elenzinzi Sport, Musebuni Makura, our technical operator, and on social media we've got Nzako Mashaba. Until the you have yourself a splendid evening further. Goodbye.